are pumped. The fans are ready.
Hello and welcome to Basketball Passport. That scene you just saw then was from Crvena Zvezda, Red Star Belgrade's fourth game of the regular home and away season at home there. I think it was Barcelona, I think they were playing. But man, that's I know we've talked about this a lot, but to see the fans like that. Now that was just before tip-off, but if you're in the arena an hour before the game, it's not much different. It's insane just how excited everybody gets there and be a part of it. So I know we're going to try to get out there at some point and experience it for yourself. What do you think, man?
Steve Ballmer just unveiled, or they debuted Intuit Dome, and they had like the wall behind the free throws or the basket there, and in that Intuit Dome, and it's like I think that's what he envisioned.
Yes.
That clip, but it was more just like they were having a picnic back there. It was just like it honestly just looked more unsafe. Now that doesn't look particularly safe either. Like that.
Oh, it's not. That's the thing. I went to a game, Red Star versus Partizan Belgrade, and I'd seen the clips online. The wave in the arena in the stand, but it's not unsafe, and they're actually quite respectful. Especially, at the game I went to, Red Star won on the road at Stark Arena in Partizan Belgrade with a buzzer beater. Basically, it was about a second to go. And I thought, oh, this could be crazy. But the fans weren't like that. They were actually like, man, we lost. It sucks. It's our biggest rival, our home court and all that. But I was actually like, oh, they're actually pretty respectful toward each other here. So I was happy to report that it may have a feeling and a reputation for being dangerous, but from my experience, wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, the wall that Ballmer put in looks unsafe. Like it's so steep. It is so steep. It is like I'm just thinking of it like do you remember the first time you ever walked in like the nosebleeds of an arena?
Yes.
Like if I make one false step, like it's the human equivalent of those mountain goats. It feels like up there,
In Barcelona's Nou Camp Arena, it's like that. You just go up and up and up, and you look down, and you're like, oh my God, I hope you don't suffer from vertigo.
Yeah.
The other thing is at that Clippers Dome, did you see $70 for general parking?
What?
70. Yeah. I think Ben Golliver tweeted it or Instagram storied it last night. $70. I mean, going to a game in Los Angeles these days, if you've got, two kids like you do and I do, lower bowl seats plus parking and something to eat, a drink, a souvenir. You're probably looking at $600-700 right there for one regular season game.
Yeah, the Lakers, I got an email. I'm trying to go through my emails really, really quickly here to see if I can find it. But I actually got an email that somebody did a bunch of research on admissions and what a ticket usually costs, parking, a couple of beers, some food, and what that would put you back. And the Lakers actually rank the highest. It would cost the most to take them there. And I think even on the low end, on average, that would cost about $400. And then, imagine paying $70 just to park your car, and then you watch James Harden and the Clippers, crap all over themselves late in that game and lose in overtime. That would
a tough experience all around.
All the bathrooms in the world, and they poop themselves right there on the court.
That's a great story there. Anyway, this is Basketball Passport. I am Lee Ellis, your host, joined by Lakers Lounge and general Lakers insider Anthony Irwin. And then on this podcast on Thursdays, we take a look at what's going on in the world of basketball. And some of it is European-based, some of it is from wherever, but it's also looking at the European or non-US born players in the NBA. This is in addition to our Sunday night podcast as well, which is live, and that's more focused on the NBA and generally what's going on in the big stories and issues there. You can follow us here, youtube.com/basketball passport, also at Lakers Lounge, which is what Anthony does. How many times a week do you go on Lakers Lounge?
Every day, pretty much, other than the weekends. So about 5 days a week.
Man. And then my personal YouTube is Lee Ellis 76. And you can also send us an email if you want. We got a legit one, which we talked about. And the reason we probably have only got one so far is because of that address, which is basketballpassportpod@gmail.com. But one in, not bad, not bad. So hopefully we can get a few more. On today's show, we are, again, going to look generally at the non-US born players. We're going to have a look at, I was down at the Atlanta Hawks versus Brooklyn Nets game last night, which was huge. Going to have a look at one of the teams and one of the players who I think is in for a big season, although after the first game, not so much there. Alperen Şengün had a really good game, but the Rockets, woof. And then today's focus is on Japan, where I've been a couple of times, played a couple of games, and had a lot of fun. So any questions, comments while we're doing this live, let us know. But I will start with the Atlanta Hawks here last night because it was the home opener against the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think there was a ton of eyeballs nationally on this game. I think this was really just one for the hardcores down there. But one of the big off-season moves the Atlanta Hawks made was for Dyson Daniels. Came over from the Pelicans in the deal with DeJounte Murray. And the one thing that the Hawks really lacked last season was perimeter D and a 3-and-D guy. I mean, they weren't a bad offensive team, but they could really use an upgrade on their perimeter. DeJounte and Trey in the backcourt was just too small. They just got killed. And Dyson Daniels had a really, really good game last night. 5 steals and a block he was credited with. I think he finished 15 points there. Had his hands on everything. You know, Cam Thomas is a good player, but Dyson Daniels was there really, you know, getting involved and being that guy that the Hawks just sorely missed last season. So this so far, it's one game, but Dyson Daniels is really adding something that the Hawks lacked big time last season.
Yeah, for whatever reason, and I think it's been this hyper focus on spacing, but you have a lot of these teams go with essentially 2 point guards in the point and shooting guard spot. You have in Sacramento, you have De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. You have in Cleveland, you have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Even the Lakers are a slightly bigger variant of this, where you have Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. But when you have 2 guys that are so small or so, and then you mentioned obviously earlier the combination that wound up getting broken up with Trey and DeJounte, you have, you know, it's just too easy for these teams that have bigger guys to pick on them, or eventually you're able to run. You give them too many options late in games for teams to pick on, and I think that's really created some issues for those teams. And I think it kind of puts a ceiling on those teams, even if they're very explosive offensively. And I was happy that Atlanta kind of called it quits on that combination. They had tried to call it quits earlier the previous year when they and the Lakers were near a deal at one point, but unfortunately, though, for New Orleans, you trade all that stuff for DeJounte Murray, and then he breaks his hand.
Yeah, and he had a few shots to say at the Hawks there too about the position he was playing there. But again, I saw them up close last season, and you could just tell it just wasn't a good fit. They were too similar in the sense that they were both small, both wanted the ball in their hands. There was, of course, talk that maybe the Hawks were going to trade Trey Young. Didn't happen. I think they made the right move here by getting him out, but by getting DeJounte out, and especially for what they got, as I say, Dyson Daniels. Now, there was a pretty big incident in the third quarter involving Nick Claxton and Dyson Daniels, where Dyson was down. He created the steal, went down on the fast break, and Nick Claxton just came in with the clothesline and just knocked him down. He was ejected. Yeah, he got ejected. And then after the game, I spoke to Dyson Daniels about it, and this is what he said.
I mean, it was stupid. You know, you don't go hit someone like that, you know, when they're in there. But I'll just let him know not to do it again. Or, you know, I got 2 brothers. I miss fighting with them. So I was just trying to go out there and have some fun, you know, fight a little bit. So, but you know, got to stay composed. You know, move on. I mean, they made the right call, rejected him, because you can't do that. You know, it's not part of our game. We don't want to see it. It's how people get hurt. So, you know, I had to stick up for myself, and if they do it to any of our teammates, we're going to stick up for each other as well.
It almost looked like you sort of were expecting it. You sort of were bracing for it. You know?
I knew he was going to try to foul me, but you know, it's like it's the aggression, how he did it. You know, he went the wrong way about it. But we move on now. It's in the past, but you know, I was just going to show a little bit of Australian spirit, you know.
That Bendigo fire.
That Bendigo fire, exactly. I've got my football background, you know, go out there, you know, maybe tackle or someone. So it's good fun.
Yeah, so that was Dyson after the game. Again, you sort of, he knew, as he mentioned there, that he was going to get fouled, but Claxton really did go across the line there and took him out. And it was a fairly quick flagrant 2 call that knocked him out. But ironically, on the play, Daniels missed both free throws, and he was actually assessed with a tech because he went in sort of after Claxton. After that, they went down. I think it was Cam Thomas hit the tech. And so Daniels missed both free throws. Now the Hawks, I think, did score on the possession. It was Daniels again who got it, but they were actually -1 point at one point on that on that flagrant there because Daniels, 1 for 1 for 4. The Hawks actually shot badly from the free throw line there last night. But it's funny because Dyson Daniels is from Bendigo. I mentioned there. Now, people who are not from certainly Victoria, Australia, the state that I'm from, wouldn't know what that is. But Bendigo and Sunbury, where I'm from, is only like a 45-minute drive or so from each other. So it's pretty cool to have someone who's in my city playing for the Hawks, and he's from just up the road.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell the familiarity there, like being ready to fight, as you guys kind of joked about. I've always said, man, don't mess with Australians.
There's plenty you can mess with. Don't worry about that. I mean,
for whatever reason in college, my wife and I were really close with the Cal State Fullerton soccer team. And there were a couple guys from the UK on that team, and then there were a couple guys from Australia on that team. And the guys from Australia, man, it's almost like they slept in the outback. Like it was just like they were so rough and tumble, and they were just good guys to have around you if you went out drinking that night. He's just like, you know what, just leave those guys alone. The way that, like, I actually was really impressed with Daniels getting the ball to the rim on that play. Yeah, normally, like, one of the things that drives me crazy is all these guys really kind of playing for the foul and their attempts never get anywhere near the rim. In that one, he obviously wasn't playing for the foul. He was playing anticipating a foul. But it very well, like, he could have easily had an and one on a flagrant 2, which I can't imagine happens very, very often.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, distinction you make there. Yeah, playing for the foul versus playing, for the contact. Which he did, but he's got those long arms. He's a very instinctual defender, and Quinn Snyder after the game was asked about it, and he obviously loves it. I mean, Quinn's Jazz teams were very, very good defensively, and he certainly hasn't had that in his time so far in Atlanta. So that's certainly something that he's enjoying a lot more. Also, we had the number 1 pick, Zaccharie Risacher, made his debut last night, came on in the first quarter. First shot, first possession. He'd been on the floor probably 11 seconds into his NBA career. He got a 3-pointer and he drilled it. I mean, pretty impressive stuff there from the youngster. Didn't get a ton of burn after that. Had a couple of good looks, got a nice dunk. But overall, I've been really impressed with Risacher's maturity, the way that he's handled himself, and that confidence and belief. Once he steps on the court, he feels those shots are good shots. And you just got to see a couple go down. We saw them in the preseason. He looked pretty nice there. And so I think the Hawks have got a keeper here. I think I was talking to some of the guys. Of course, Alex Sarr was another guy who was pretty much considered the number 1 pick for most of the, pre-draft process there. But I think the Hawks are really happy that they've got Risacher. I think he's going to come off the bench mostly this season, I would think. I can't see him really forcing his way into that lineup unless the Hawks go on a terrible run. But overall, I think they're feeling pretty good that Risacher's got a lot to his game.
And this is pretty easily the quietest debut for a first overall pick that I can ever remember. And I do kind of wonder if the experience here for Risacher makes us hopefully rethink the way that we cover rookies, right? Like I can't stand the rookie of the year debate every year because we just ignore the context that these players play under. I just, I think we're hyper focused and we set these crazy high standards for these rookies who are drafted really high and, you know, wind up having fine careers, but it's like, well, it's not good enough for a second or third overall pick. And it's like, well, it's still a fine NBA career. It's better than 99.999999% of all human being careers. So, I really like that we're kind of giving Risacher some space. He's going to develop at whatever pace he's going to develop. And I think Atlanta is going to be way better off in the long term for the way that this is all being handled.
Yeah, and Jalen Johnson is ahead of him, DeAndre Hunter, similar sort of players, similar sort of roles. Those guys will be starting. Jalen Johnson just signed the 5-year, $150 million extension as well. So he's clearly the guy they're going with right now. But again, it's good with Bogdanovic coming off the bench, Okongwu as well. So Okongwu had a fantastic game there last night. So the Hawks bench and depth, pretty strong. They got V. Krejci coming in as well. And, I think that's the thing. Risacher can have, an impactful, good season filling in that role. He's going to get his opportunity to shoot and score. And it's exciting actually watching the Hawks right now. I don't think they're going to crack the top 4 in the Eastern Conference, but at least they can be fun to watch, which is that's the consolation prize. Because if you look at the Nets, I mean, that's a tough watch. That's a tough watch. Cam Thomas is good, but he's just going to fire away because there's not really a star on that team. Of course, I mean, Ben Simmons should be that guy. Ben Simmons, man, watching him last night, it's so frustrating because he does have a high passing IQ. He knows how to make these right passes. He knows, like, okay, I'm not the shooter, but if I can get the ball to the shooters, then that's just as effective. And he did that so well last night. But there were a couple of times where it's just like, now it's your time to eat, though. You've got to go and, especially again, you're matching up on the smaller guys. Like pretty much everyone at his position is undersized against him. And you see him sort of back down someone. It's like, but there's nothing to it. There's no confidence in the ability to hit any sort of consistent shot where it should be like, okay, let's say DeAndre Hunter is defending him or Daniel. It doesn't matter. One of those guys. Simmons should be able to get to his spot where he's got a little baby hook, a jump hook, a midi, something. But he just never looks for it. Never. Instead, he's just like, right, where are the shooters? And he can hit them in the right spot. I mean, his passing is really good. But there's just such a gaping hole in his offensive game because he can't threaten you with that other weapon. It's like if you're not passing, then you've got no real presence out on the floor.
On top of it, too, he's a terrible free throw shooter.
Yeah.
And I really think that being a bad free throw shooter can have a real ripple effect on the rest of your game because you're always terrified to get to the free throw line. Then it's just you and everybody is watching you and your broken jumper. It's guys like Shaq that actually is kind of a fascinating study because he knew he was terrible at free throws. He knew he was going to miss like 9 or 10 of them on a nightly basis. He just didn't care. He was just like, I'm still really good elsewhere.
Well, that's right.
Guys like Simmons, or even you'll see it some nights with Giannis. If he doesn't have it going from the free throw line, he's a completely different player. Like if I watch a Giannis game and he gets to the free throw line early and he knocks down 3 or 4 of them in the first couple possessions, I'm like, oh, yeah, we're in for a Giannis game. But then the inverse is correct there too, where you watch Giannis and he gets to the free throw line and he misses 3 out of the 4 there. You're like, that's going to come back later in the game when he's reluctant to get to the basket.
Yeah, but I think with Giannis, he doesn't let that stop him from just still competing and getting to try, that. And that's the thing with Simmons. Like he just like, you're just like, this guy's not even looking for a shot at any point. Yeah. And the way they run their offense, Jordi Fernandez there, it's like find the shooters. And if they're knocking them down, they hung around. The Nets, this was a pretty close game, the whole game. But it would be such a different outlook if it's like Simmons is just like, finding those passes so the floor opens up. There's no one protecting the paint or, very little. And he can just get past his opponent and he's got an easy layup or drop it in there. But it doesn't do it. It's funny being down there at the game as well, pre-game. I saw him warming up. I've never seen anybody get the ball, where the lines of the ball are flat like that. But when he shoots it, it spins like the earth.
Yeah.
And it's so tempting to just record it and put it on social media, but I was just like, I can't do it, man. I can't do it. It's because he clanked like 6 or 7 in a row too, which you almost never see from an NBA. Any NBA player warming up. I mean, Dwight Howard would hit shots, warming up, but Simmons was getting it, and it was just like, how are you getting that rotation on the ball and then still just clunking them out there by yourself? Guys just rebounding, passing it straight back, and I was like, ugh, man. So
I don't know. He shoots with his left hand. The ball
Sort of.
leaves from the right side of his body, and you mentioned the spin. There's no rhythm to it, and he's in year 7 in the NBA?
Longer, because he was 2016.
He feels like he's been in the league forever. So he might be, probably
10.
might be
Or
nearing
9.
year 10 for him.
9,
and I don't know how you go that. I mean, this is what happens when guys get paid so early, right? They're like, I got paid anyway. I got paid for being that kind of a player anyway. And there's no incentive really to improve their game in that way. I'm really curious what his next, because I believe he's a free agent after this year.
Yeah, he's expiring.
Really want to know what his market is going to look like, because the talent is undeniable.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't think he has the correct approach to the sport.
Well, he could stick around the NBA, but no one's giving him more than maximum 2-year contract, maximum. Yeah. Because there's just no way. Even I think he's 28. It's like, why would you invest anything long term or substantial? I think plenty of teams will be like, yeah, we can probably figure it out. We can find a role for him. But he's done in terms of getting the big payday. This is the last one he's going to get. So anyway, moving on. So another guy who I think is in for a big season, and his team should be in for an improved year, the Houston Rockets and Alperen Şengün. He had a big night there last night at home. I don't know if you saw much of this one or saw the recap, but the Hornets stormed back in. They were down big, and I mean, they won this. And this is a sort of game that the Rockets, you think a year or so ago, you can kind of write off, but now it's like they should be overwhelming the Charlotte Hornets at home, season opener, having that huge night there from Şengün.
Yeah, I can't figure out Houston. Everything points to them being a really good team this year, but they're so young, and their young guys are really challenging the veterans for minutes, and you never know how that's going to play out in the locker room. I want to believe in look, the talent that they have is undeniable. That roster is stacked with young guys, and their veterans are helpful too. I can't quite figure out what they're going to do this year. And I think last night was a perfect example of my concerns with them, because again, overwhelming when they were riding high. But then also they just, hit the brakes in such weird ways. And Charlotte is a bad team. Like they do not have very much NBA talent. And for Charlotte to make Houston the way that they made them look last night, when Houston is returning most of their core too, I don't quite understand the highs and lows in that organization.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, I think you can probably just dismiss this down to just game one. Sure, didn't close it out, but I mean, they should have. But Şengün,
game one.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah,
it's like it's the one that you've been planning for a month for.
Yeah, But Şengün, he's one of those guys. He's fun to watch. He's got the moves. I know there's the baby Jokic type of reference has been made to him, but I enjoy watching him because he's got nice soft hands. He can pass that ball. He can move it. So I think he's in for a big year. Again, I think the Rockets will be better than they were last year, but bit of a stinker there to get things underway.
I love how physical Şengün plays.
Yeah.
He is always pushing the boundaries as far as what's a foul, what's not a foul off of the ball, blockouts that are a little too physical sometimes. And you can tell, in this NBA where so many bigs kind of like to play on the perimeter and stuff like that, and then they have to go and guard somebody like Şengün, and it's just like, you could just tell over the years, players that guys just don't have a lot of fun competing with on a nightly basis, right? Dale Davis is always the example that I always kind of come back to, because every NBA player who played in that era said that their arms would get pinned down by Dale Davis at some point. And it's just like, I don't like playing against that guy, and I think Şengün is one of those guys who every single play you're going to get pushed in the back, every single play you're going to get kneed in the butt, every single play, like it's just going to be this annoying, like, big brother giving you a noogie for the whole game kind of a deal with Şengün. And you could see, like, by the end of the game, the player that they had to guard Şengün, or Şengün was guarding, is just like, I'm so ready for this to be over.
Yeah. And Dale Davis is a great example, because I just think of him on the Pacers in 2000 against the Lakers in the final. He was a gigantic human being, just a monster. And Shaq was just like, get out of here, like, I don't know if I don't know statistically if Dale Davis fouled out of every game, but it felt like he had 4 fouls every time he stepped on the court.
Yeah,
because
warm-ups.
I mean, it was Hacker-Shaq prime then. They had Smits, I think Antonio Davis too on that team. Or no, he might have been gone by then. But
Pistons.
But I just remember looking at Dale Davis and thinking, in any other walk of life, he is the biggest human in the room. But against Shaq, it was like there's nothing you could do there to stop him. And
another guy.
Another guy.
Like another guy. Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier we are going to go to Japan. Before we get there, though, because I want to get your thoughts on Rui Hachimura, who had a pretty strong debut in a very fun opening night game there against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But with the Nets in town, Dennis Schroeder is on that team. He's another former Laker, Raptor. He's bounced around a fair bit. FIBA Schroeder is just an incredible player. I mean, they are the current world champion right now, Germany, having knocked off Serbia in the Philippines last year. But Schroeder from Germany, I actually saw him at the EuroLeague Final Four in Berlin this year. I didn't speak to him, but he was there, a proud German. And while I was in Berlin, I was out shooting some content, and I found these courts, right, with these crazy nets. They're not even really nets. They're like this like string sort of like, it's like the old basket that James Naismith first pinned on that wall, where the net doesn't move. So the ball goes in and then it goes round and round and round and drops out. I mean, it's just crazy. And I talked to Schroeder about it after the game, because for me, and the most important sound you can hear on a basketball court, it's not the squeaking of the shoes or the dribbling of the ball, it's the swish. You want to hear a swish. Like, it's go exactly like that. That's what you want to hear. And if you don't hear that, then you just don't want to play. And so I did a video on the net in Berlin, and then I asked Dennis Schroeder about them, just to see if he knew what I was talking about, for one, and if that's something that's common in Germany. When you're out on the court, you want to hear a swish. Right. You can't hear a swish on those ones.
No, not on those ones. But you got to understand, too, back in the day where the DS-17 court is being built right now, they had 2-3 times, like, we switched them out and had great nets there, but people took them, and when you have that situation, then you, of course, don't buy the real ones no more, or the great ones. And, that's the reason. But you're right. You should hear a swish when you swish it.
The old CatCut logo kept in there as well. But, it's crazy because, not only you can't hear the swish, but you saw as the balls, they don't drop down. Because whenever the other team scores, if you want to get out in transition or start the possession, get going, you want it to happen as quickly as possible. Instead, you just got to wait and wait and wait. Yep. And it's going in too. It's not like it's dribbling, it's not like it's rolling around the hoop and then, going to fall out. It's like, it's going in. It's just taking, seconds to for the ball to go through so you can start the next possession.
I do not say this lightly. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. I hate it so much. I guess I've said this on my show in the past. I've said this on this show, the one thing that I think I'm an okay basketball player with is shooting. My favorite sound in the world is this. That is literally, by the way, a sounder from my lowdown shows. That's what plays in between my segments. I love that sound so much. And I would never play on that court. It looked like a beautiful court too.
It was.
You have that beautiful mural in the background, and it looked like it was located in a cool kind of urban spot. And I don't care. I would I would never play there. It also reminded me of I forget which playoff series it was. I think it was a Lakers series against the Spurs, or no, I think it was a Suns series against the Spurs, where it was during the 7 seconds or less run that the Suns were having, and in order to slow the Suns down on makes in San Antonio, in the games in San Antonio, Greg Popovich actually asked for longer nets, because it would take longer for the ball to get through the basket, and Phoenix wouldn't be able to run as quickly as they wanted to during that stretch there. And had Pop known this was an option, we might have seen that war crime on the court in that in the NBA playoffs.
That's right. Pop, would be like, I know it's going to make it harder for us as well, but it's going to make it even harder for them. So imagine you could do things like that. Imagine the home team could be like, all right, we're going with these nets tonight. But cool to get Dennis Schroeder's thoughts, and for me as well. And the other thing with the rims there, you could sort of see it. I'll post the clip later on again, but they are the thickest, toughest, most Germanly typically built. These things are going to last forever. The design and the construction.
Not on my watch. I'm going to Germany and I'm cutting them down.
I mean, he says, people rip the nets down and stuff, but I'm like, put chain nets up, because chain nets,
beautiful sound too.
I love the sound of a chain net on the outdoor court. Anyway, thank you to Dennis Schroeder there for, or at least, like sometimes people get a little sensitive about anything if you mention it from their home country or city, and they're like, no, we like whatever. He was like, no, you're right. You got to hear that swish. So thank you there to Dennis Schroeder. So just before we move on then to Japan, Rui, pretty impressive first up game. Lakers get the dub, and he had a nice big old dunk there. I think it was on Rudy. He smashed one there on Rudy. What are your thoughts about Rui going into this season?
So, like you said, Rui, 18 points in 35 minutes there, grabbed 5 rebounds. So Redick, one of the things that Redick has been really, really adamant about this year is the Lakers being better on the margins on the court. I wish that would also trickle into the rest of the organization, where they could be better on the margins everywhere. But he's talked about creating extra offensive rebounding opportunities, limiting those from the other team, really valuing the basketball, not turning it over as much, so that, when the Lakers have the advantage that they have in the one, like they always shoot more free throws than the other team because you have LeBron and AD, the more margins that you have, the more margin for error you have in that game. And like the Lakers shot incredibly poorly in that one, 5 of 30 from 3-point range against Minnesota, 42 for 95 overall from the field. It was just this really kind of ugly, mucked up game. And it always felt like the Lakers should be leading by more, and that this was more of an unimpressive look from Minnesota than it was impressive from the Lakers. But I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, the Lakers are getting better on those margins, and Rui is kind of the centerpiece of that conversation. If he does what the Lakers are asking him to do, they're a significantly better team. So was all preseason, his rebounding is way up, not the rebounding performance in terms of actually grabbing the rebounds in game one that you would have liked to seen. But Rui, he loves to be coached. He loves direction. And I think he's finally getting it from Redick compared to last year with Ham. And he really seems to relish in that opportunity.
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, Anthony Edwards is good, but the Lakers, I think, should have made it a little more comfortable. But one thing I noticed, and I actually mentioned it yesterday on Threads. I'm on the Threads these days. Twitter is just gross. But I watched the highlights of that one back, and trading away Karl Anthony Towns. Not that he was necessarily a huge rim protector himself, but at least he was a presence. When Rudy sat, the Lakers just seemed to stroll into the paint, and there was just no resistance. And that's something that, for Chris Finch, that they have to figure out, because Rudy has to sit. And I think those sorts of moments as well really show, no one has to love Rudy. You don't have to love him, but you can't ignore the fact that just his presence on the court does change things. And there's that one where LeBron literally got the ball. I think it was in transition. Maybe the Wolves made a basket, but either way, he just strolled down, and it was literally like a layup in a training drill. And that's just a big problem there, because Anthony Edwards, I think he's offensively powerful enough that he can drag his team back. He's got a lot of skill there. Yeah, he did. But they just can't get into those holes when Rudy sits. So it'd be interesting to see, because Julius certainly doesn't fill that void for them. So, some work there to do for the Wolves.
Rui actually took a shot at Julius in that game, saying that like part of the Lakers' game plan was they know that Julius just likes to kind of stand around sometimes.
Yeah.
And the Lakers wanted to take advantage of it. Don't really hear that too often from NBA players, but Rui's a good quote when he wants to be. And if he does what the Lakers need him to do, I think they'll be okay. We'll see what the Lakers this year. The point on Rudy is an interesting one, because it's not like Cat was bringing that to the table either when Rudy sat down. He's a bigger guy, Cat.
Yeah.
I think that helps a little bit. But yeah, I'm really kind of like Naz Reid has been this great story to this point. But with Cat gone, Naz really needs to step up in those non-Rudy moments, and he's going to be the focal point there in those minutes defensively as that anchor, and I'm really curious how he's going to handle him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think with Cat is, even though he wasn't, a great rim protector or shot blocker himself, it's just he's a known player, and he's someone that you sort of respect, just that he's out there, and he's going to step in and at least challenge those sorts of shots. But it didn't happen at all on Tuesday night there when Rudy sat. Okay, so the focus of today's show is Japan. We're moving away from the European continent, where I've started most of these shows, and I'm going to Tokyo, which is the most populous city in the world with 37 million people. An absolutely fascinating and captivating destination, and I don't think you've ever been, but you will be amazed at just how clean Japan is in general. And again, Tokyo, to have 37 million people, it is spotless. The subway is clean, efficient, well run. Just walking on the streets, everything is just clean, and you feel like I just don't know how they're able to maintain those standards, but they do. And in the hotel that we stayed at in this past summer, they really want you to separate your garbage, your recycling, your compost, your cardboard, all that sort of stuff, to the point where they will fine you if they find out that you didn't separate or your recyclables like that. So you get there and you're sort of like, well, man, they're pretty strict here. But after a few days, you're like, oh, actually, I don't mind this. When you go out and you tour the city, you take your rubbish home with you and then you separate it. Because there's not many like actual trash cans even out on the street. They're basically like, you make trash, take it home and separate it. So that is one way that's pretty effective of stopping people from just, when you see those old trash cans are just like rubbish just falling out onto the street and no one's touching, they're dirty, there's rats and mice and things like that. Well, it doesn't really happen in Japan, and incredible that they're able to do it. Again, like with that many people, you would just think, I mean, what's the population of California? It's about that, isn't it? Like 40 million?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
So the population of California in Tokyo. Now, I've been twice, and this summer I was there for the second time, but the first time I was actually there kind of by accident, believe it or not, because I had been in Manila doing an event out there, and I was supposed to go back to Atlanta via Seoul. But what happened was, on my flight on the way out, my flight actually to Manila got cancelled at the last minute because a typhoon swept through Seoul where I was going via. And so I thought I wasn't going to go. I thought, oh, the trip's off. Turns out the next day I did get a flight and I went via Seoul and then I went to Manila. But because the original flight was cancelled, they actually cancelled my return ticket as well. So I arrived in Manila and I had no ticket to get back to Atlanta. And so I spoke to the people who were who taking care of me out there, Titan, Nico Ramos and the crew out there, Slam Online Philippines, fantastic work they do. And I said, do you guys know that, you know, I haven't got a trip back? And so we had to scramble a little bit to get a flight back. And I think because of the delays of the typhoon, it knocked a few other flights out and there wasn't many options. So they said to me, you can go via Doha in Qatar or Tokyo. And I said, oh, well, let's go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
So it was even better because I had an 18-hour layover. And I'm like, oh, great. I can get out, maybe see a little bit of the city and also try to organize a run. But I only had like 2 days to organize this. And so I sent a message to Ryo Anishi. I don't know if you know Ryo at all. He covers NBA in Japan. He does absolutely outstanding work for the NBA and basketball in general. He acts as a translator. He's Japanese, but he was actually born, I think, in New Jersey. But now he's based out there in Tokyo, and he's a big basketball guy. And so I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, Rayo, any chance you can organize a run for me on about 36 hours notice?"
Yeah,
and it was the middle of summer. All his friends were sort of away at their, on their summer vacations. And he said, look, it's a bit tough. I sent a few messages out there, but A, it's basically no notice, and B, most people are away. Anyway, so he said, listen, just let me know when you arrive and I'll take you to a place where I'm pretty sure there'll be someone playing at least and you can get a run in. Mm-hmm. And so I arrived and he took me out to a place called Yoyogi Park, which is, again, in the city somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, but it's in the city somewhere there. And so I turned up and there were these guys playing and I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been there before. And so Rayo, being the great person that he is, obviously acted as a translator as well. And he said something about, hey, this guy just wants to play. Can he play? And they, the Japanese people were exceptionally friendly and welcoming and immediately were like, yep, come on out and play. And so, you know what it's like when you turn up, different country, different city, you don't speak the language, you don't know anybody. When you're on the basketball court, you don't want to be that guy who just becomes Dion Waiters and just starts firing away. You want to sort of pass it around and show, hey, I'm going to be a good guy and I'm going to be a good teammate here. And so I started playing, and it was great fun. But pretty soon I realized that there was a guy out there who was more than just a good player. He was a real showman. And so I started just like, after I played a couple of games, then I'm just going to start watching this guy because I could see a story developing. His name is Toshiro. Just had his birthday yesterday, actually. Shout out to Toshiro if he's watching. But I put together a little highlight reel of his stuff here. And again, you know what street ball is like. Mm-hmm. When guys are out there putting on a show, they are so much fun to watch. Here I'll put this up. My favorite part about playing pickup basketball around the world is the street hoopers I've met. And this guy, Toshiro in Tokyo, proved that once again. He had a smooth handle that allowed him to finish beautifully at the rim. He had a mid-range game, but he did his most damage from three-point range, and so much of this stuff came off the dribble as well. But he wasn't just a shooter and a scorer. He was a great teammate as well. Here he is throwing a Lucas-style cross-court slingshot pass that was converted. So, awesome guy to play with and an easy choice for game MVP, which meant Toshiro walked away with a sweet new pair of low-cut Jordan 2s. Yeah, that was his highlight reel. And honestly, I could have put some more in there. He had another really, really nice play where in full, transition, the defender came out and he dribbled it between the defender's legs and got the ball. And then he actually missed the layup. He didn't quite finish it off there, but it was just so much fun. And again, a lot of what I love to do is that spontaneity of being in a new city, a new country, and just seeing what can happen.
Yeah.
Because you discover, street ball legends like this, and it is so much fun to play with those guys.
It reminds me, I mentioned Bourdain on the last one, but Bourdain had an entire show that was about long layovers. I think it was called The Layover with Anthony Bourdain. And he would like give himself 18 to 24 hours in a place, and he would get the absolute most that he could out of those 18 to 24 hours or so. And, and again, it's just that same kind of approach to travel, approach to life of like, you know what, let's just see what happens here. Let's just see how this goes. And and the great thing about like that spontaneity too is sometimes when you're going into a place and you're looking to tell one story, it kind of blinds you from the other things that might be going on. And you may never have found this guy dribbling the ball between, people's legs and stuff like that, if not for just showing up to a park and seeing who has what.
Well, and even, going back further, like sort of putting the thread back there, like if the typhoon didn't go through Seoul, I was going to Seoul, to Manila, back to Seoul, and back to Atlanta. Now, I was planning on doing something in Seoul as well. I had a similar sort of layover there, but it didn't happen. Instead, it sort of took me to Tokyo. It took me to that court with Toshiro and those guys, and it was just an incredibly fun experience. And now we're kind of buddies on social media as well. We follow each other on Instagram. He's always posting stuff. He comments and likes a lot of my stuff as well. And so not only do you form that bond for that time you're playing on the court, but you do become kind of friends because you've had this experience together. And I went out there again this summer, and I messaged him. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. Are you going to be around?" He's like, "Yep, I'll be there." And we played again, and it was it's awesome. So now I can feel confident that anytime I'm in Tokyo, assuming those guys are around, he and Rayo, we'll be able to get a game going. And so it builds these. It really does build these friendships and these bonds that start on the basketball court just through playing, and then they extend beyond that. And I mean, it's so fulfilling, it's so rewarding, it's so exciting. The hardest part is trying to capture it and tell that story so I can share it with people and they can be like, oh, that sounds fun. I want to do the same thing.
Quick question. Yeah, when you the second time you played with him, did you plan on being on his same team, or were you on his same team when you were playing him? Because I wonder how you would feel if he dropped the ball between your legs.
Yeah.
If you'd be like, yeah, he's a great player and all that stuff. Yeah. A little showy.
No, good point. And I did have a second video there, which I'll get to on a later show. But I said it on this time. I said, I'm his teammate this time, because this guy, he's not only a great shooter and scorer, but he loves to pass. He's got tons of flair. And he's just so much fun. He's one of those guys that you're like, just be ready, because the ball's coming to you at some point. He might go in for a crazy layup. He might hit a shot. He might hit that 3-pointer. But also he's like, he knows to get everybody else involved there. So it's a fabulous destination to go to, Japan and Tokyo. I played also in Osaka this year, which was great fun. And this thing, I don't want to sort of give away the entire Japanese experience in one show. I want to sort of sprinkle it through, because each time I went had just a different story and a different angle to it. And it's really, really fun to have those experiences and to meet guys like that and play. And I'm a little surprised, though, we don't have more Japanese players in the NBA right now, and we haven't had a ton over the years, because the NBA played the first ever official regular season games in Tokyo in 1990. So like we're talking 34 years ago. There was obviously a passion for the game then. There remains a passion now, but we haven't yet really seen that payoff in the sense of there's Rui we talked about. But I think Rui, where was he born? Was he actually born in the United States, or was he born in Japan?
I'd have to find it.
Yeah. And we've got the Grizzlies' Yuki Kawamura, who is on a two-way after a pretty impressive preseason, but didn't play last night. And he's probably only going to get a handful of minutes. He'll probably spend a lot of time in the G League anyway. But I'm just a little surprised that considering the Japanese have such great infrastructure, they have the money, the expertise to develop players. But most importantly, they have the passion. And they have really good facilities. That's a big thing, what it comes down to. Like, these courts or this court you saw there in your Yogi Park, that's one. There's another court there as well. But they have tournaments there. They're always playing different sort of competitions. And so it's not like there's no desire, there's no passions there. I mean, they're great athletes. They know how to play. They've got great flair. Just a little surprised that we haven't seen it sort of, develop into more international or, NBA talent.
Rui born in the Toyama prefecture. So he was born in Japan.
Right.
And then came over. Yeah. It's this weird thing, right? Where you'll see down stretches for countries and you'll see up stretches for countries, right? We talked about France, and the giant strides forward that they have taken recently. Sometimes it just boils down to the right person being born in the right place at the right time. But to your point though, if that player is born in Japan, if that great player is born in Japan, because of all of the facilities and because of the passion and because of the organization that you talked about, a good chance that player winds up being a very good player, maximizes their potential while they're there and growing up in Japan. Yeah,
and you have to look at baseball too. I mean, if obviously Shohei Ohtani right now is the number one guy in baseball.
The best player I've ever seen.
Yeah, and who was the guy for the Yankees there? His name's
Matsui.
And Ichiro, of course. So, and baseball is bigger than basketball in Japan, and then probably soccer after that. So maybe that's another reason as well that, the super talented athletes maybe get picked out a little earlier and go and play baseball. I think handball's another big sport out there too. So basketball in that sense might be, fourth or fifth in the food chain as far as the talent that it gets, because I know that I remember when Matsui, because I was in Toronto and he was on the Yankees, and whenever the Yankees come to town, the Japanese media was like 35 people there, oh man, that must be just intense.
Well, there's always a Japanese reporter specifically asking questions about Rui, always at the Lakers games, and in practices, in big press conferences and stuff like that. Like, the passion for sports in Japan is incredible. You actually watch, we use a lot of the examples from, European and other international basketball games and those scenes, but the scenes from Japanese baseball games are incredible. They are so much fun, and the bat flips from those Japanese players is majestic. Nothing short of majestic.
Yeah. No, it is great. I mean, the passion out there, and they've got their own league, and Shohei is unbelievable. When's the first pitch for the World Series? It must be tonight, is it?
Tomorrow. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow night is the first one. Dodgers, Yankees. It's gonna be
perfect.
Great. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
That's but he's only hitting at the moment, isn't he? Because he's not pitching. Yeah. But he still
had the thing about the Dodgers is that they're ahead of schedule technically. They're supposed to get Shohei back as a pitcher next year, and Buehler will be healthier and all that stuff. So this is kind of I'm not going to say that it's house money or anything like that. I want to go out and win the World Series, but
of course,
they're way out ahead of schedule. I didn't think that they would be there this year.
Yeah, no, well, they got Ohtani last season and $700 million, isn't his contract that?
Yeah, but it's not paid until 2040 something.
So, you mentioned as well about Anthony Bourdain earlier, and the layovers, and the other thing that I love, on this trip I traveled by myself, which I enjoy when I am working, as I was, even though it looks like I'm just playing basketball, but I'm working. And so when your family's not there, it's a little easier to focus on the work. But it's also, when it comes to accommodation, if you're going with your family, you've got to stay in a hotel. You've got to take care of those things, especially when you've got kids. Mm-hmm. But because I wasn't with my family, I was like, I only need a bed. I don't really need anything too special. And at the airport in Haneda, the Tokyo's newest airport, beautiful airport, they basically have these cabins that you can just rent for a night. And so I was like, this is perfect. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. It was like I was camping almost, with just not in a tent. And I put together a little piece on that too.
Oh, man. at the airport?
Yeah, this is at the airport. This is my room for the night. It's literally a bed, and
wow.
then there's a washroom nearby and stuff, but it's boys separated as well. So it's like males one side, females on the other there. But the funny thing was that, I just left my passport and, stuff in that cabin. There was no real lock on the door. You just sort of slide it closed and you leave everything there. And it's perfect for one night. That's all you need is like just dump your stuff. You go and shower. You put on the little suit that they have there, so it's everyone's wearing the same thing. And I like a firm bed, a firm mattress to sleep on. This mattress out there was the hardest thing I'd ever felt, and I was like, this is going to kill me. I won't be able to sleep. My back's going to be hurting and everything. It was the opposite. I think I had the best night's sleep I've ever had. Yeah. And again, the Japanese, I mean, they do things so well when they design things and build things, the architecture, the engineering. And so I was like, this is the worst. Like, this is what I think it was only like $70 for the night. I mean, again, it's like, well, you don't need anything beyond that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I got to steal this mattress. How can I bring this mattress back with me? Because it's like, I love my wife. I love, we share a bed every night. But I'm like, if it's the mattress or, I might just have to share. I might just sleep on this mattress. But
you're like Tom Hanks in that movie where he was
airport.
He came back and he slept on not the airport one, but the one where he was stranded. I forget what movie it is.
What, Castaway?
Castaway, yeah. And he came back and he slept on the ground because he was so used to sleeping on the ground.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it was such a cool experience because I was like, well, this is it. This is all I need is a cabin. I certainly don't need a big fancy hotel. It was right at the airport, so again, the subway in Tokyo is so efficient. It's so clean. It's cheap, and it takes you across the city in no time. I think it was probably about half an hour into Shibuya crossing there, which is the crazy big crossing. And then I just walked from there to the park, which was probably another 20-minute walk there, but it's a really nice walk. And then I got back, had a shower, and I was ready to go. And you sort of feel like I don't feel comfortable not really locking my door here, but I'm also like, well, I guess everyone else who is staying here is in the same boat in that sense. So you sort of you have that trust with other travelers, but awesome experience. I mean, just a great bonus trip in so many ways because again, I wasn't even supposed to be in Tokyo, and I said, "Yep, let's go. Let's go to Tokyo." I had about 18 hours there, ate well, played some hoops, had a great night sleep, and I was in and out. And so then I went back this year with my family and had an even better time. So if anyone's out there thinking about visiting Japan, 100% do it. One of the most fun destinations you can get to.
Jen, if you're listening, get ready.
Do you like ramen and sushi?
Oh my God. Yesterday was my birthday. So we went out for my birthday dinner was sushi. And I'm a sushi traditionalist too. I don't really do rolls. I love nigiri. I love, it's so good.
Well, this is actually the last point I'll make about my experience anyway in Tokyo, especially. Or anywhere, Osaka and Kyoto too, is, anytime you travel to a destination and people ask you, hey, if you got any restaurant recommendations, any food spots I've got to hit, I will say you don't need any preparation for Japan for that. You just get out of a subway station and walk into a place. And I loved it. I went in a couple of times this year where I just got out of the subway and I took my wife and our boys and I said, right, we're just going to go into this place. And there's only sometimes seating for like 8 to 10 people. And you do this sort of funky ordering. You order almost from a vending machine. You've got to sort of punch it in. And then all of a sudden they just sort of call out your number when your meal is ready and you go and get it and sit down. And those experiences are so much fun because you really are amongst the locals and you're doing what they do. They did the big slurp when they're eating their ramen as well, but it's not rude. That's how they eat it. And so, you
actually compliment.
Yeah, it is. And that's right. You try to be one of, you try to be like a local there. And the other crazy thing is they've got these mini marts everywhere. I mean, mini mart, everyone knows what that is. Even a couple of days when we were out sightseeing, you don't always have time to go to a restaurant, or you don't even want to sometimes. You just want to sort of keep going. We went into these mini marts, and even the food there, I'm talking like a 7-Eleven equivalent. It's like the freshest sort of sushi you can find, the freshest bread. And I'm just like, this is amazing. Like I was somewhat reluctant or hesitant to even admit it. But I was like, I would say 3 or 4 lunches we had out there were just from the mini mart, because you're like, the food here is really good. It's really high quality. It's cheap. Yeah. It's easy. And, you have these like they're like triangle seaweed rolls almost, with a bit of salmon in there. And you can have 1 or 2 of those, and that fills you up, and it tastes great, and it costs nothing, and it's fresh, and you're just like, this is amazing. They've actually cracked the code for making, convenience store food not only edible but actually tasty. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a store out here. I live in Austin, and there's a store out here called H Mart. I think it's a franchise. I think there are multiple like stores of it, and it's this big Japanese store, and they have the sushi market in the back of the store, and you have fresh fish that are like literally swimming around back there. You have and then there's also like a restaurant section where you can get basically like Japanese street food in this store. And we'll usually go there like once or twice a month. It is just, it's fine. I think obviously I'm biased. I'm Mexican. So like my favorite is Mexican food, but if I had to pick like a runner up to that, I'd be pretty hard pressed between Japanese and Italian.
Yeah. Greek
I think
food's
Japanese
great.
wins it. I think Japanese wins it.
Yeah. Belgian food's great. I mean, amazing stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so that is it for today's show. This is the one that we do every Thursday around this time. It sort of varies somewhat, but usually between 10:30 and 11:30 we get it off. And on Sunday nights around 8 p.m. Eastern, although what time are the Dodgers and Yankees must be playing on Sunday night? They have to be.
They actually might not be, because
if they go Friday, Saturday, maybe then.
Yeah, I think they might have Sunday off.
Wow, that's surprising. Huge. Good for us, though. Good for us. Good for me that I'll be able to talk. I'll be able to talk to you for Sunday night anyway. But join us there. And if you do have any questions or comments, anything you want to say, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com. I haven't, no. Nothing else is in there.
From last week.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever answered it. Do you want to answer it really quick?
Oh yeah, let's. Why not? While we're here, let me. From Nick Poe. Yes, I'm an absolute basketball sicko who nerds out on all things EuroLeague. Growing up, loved watching the Blazers and Sonics in the 90s. I was amazed by Euros like Detlef and Drazen. Now I love Giannis and all the new stars. Wondering if you'll speak a bit on what you learned on your travels in regard to the European system. Here in the US, AAU is a disaster. My kids have to pay hundreds a month to play club soccer, but in Europe seems to have a state-funded system and club-funded system. I would love to hear a discussion on that. Yeah, interesting point. And I think from I can't really speak too much on the AAU stuff because I just don't know it that well. I didn't grow up here and I don't quite follow it closely enough, but I know that Kobe didn't like it. And so, if someone like him, speaks out in a way and says this is not great, then people should listen, because I think the biggest focus in Europe is on playing basketball and being better at basketball playing, rather than necessarily just playing for the sake of playing. And you don't only learn from playing. You got to go through, you got to practice, you got to understand the why you do things rather than just how you do them. And I think when you look at guys like Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic, and go back a little bit further with Vlade and Peja Stojakovic, even the Gasol brothers, not the best athletes necessarily out on the court, but some of the smartest guys you can play with. I mean, high IQ, unselfish, truly about winning first, not about statistics. And I think it was 2 weeks ago we talked about the French system, and Boris Diaw, when David Griffin was telling me, David Griffin was like, go out and get a triple-double. And Boris was like, well, I'll take the win. I don't really care about that. And David Griffin was like, but you'll get more money if you get bigger stats, and the stats look great, and it's easy to negotiate a bigger salary. And he was sort of like, well, sure. But, he wasn't focused on making as much money as he could. He was focused on winning and trying to win a championship. And I think I think what I do notice about American style systems is there tends to be a bigger focus on you're the franchise star. You're the guy who we really want to build everything around, rather than, hey, it's about the team and it's about winning, and adjust your role and develop it slightly differently to how you may have played in the past.
My theory is twofold. One, culturally, you've mentioned in the past how in your travels there isn't as much 5-on-5 play abroad. The focus is more 3-on-3, and I think you learn more playing 3-on-3 than you learn where, out here the focus in AAU and scrimmages and stuff like that tend always to be 5-on-5 scrimmages. So I think that is a bit of a disservice, as a foundational learning approach. But the biggest thing is, and this tends to be the issue here in America, is capitalism. It's everything. Everything for AAU is devoted towards making the most that you can off of each athlete. The more that you can make off of club soccer athletes also is all, the focus. Club baseball is also just big money, and pay for play always has a negative impact on the growth of youth sports in any given country. Men's soccer in America is a disaster compared to what women's soccer does, and even like with women's soccer, the women in America have been kind of caught up. Now it's always going to happen naturally, but I think women's soccer in America has been caught up by, again, these other countries allotting resources to their youth programs, but not having the focus be as much money as you can possibly make off of those programs. So generally speaking, a lot of the issues when you compare the way that we do them here in the States to how other countries do them elsewhere is our hyper focus and kind of never ending drive towards person A making as many dollars as they possibly can. That's
100% true. The focus is on make the money first and then worry about everything else second.
Yep.
And I don't see it changing, unfortunately. That's because the US, I've said this for a while, the USA should be always one of the favorites going into the Soccer World Cup. The amount of immigration from soccer loving nations, the development, the infrastructure, the facilities, the conditions. America, I know the women have been fantastic at that. They're always amongst the favorites, but the men just seem to get to that point where they're better than most teams, but they're not really legitimate challengers or contenders for the World Cup. And that, to me, is just shocking that this country with the facilities and money and infrastructure it has doesn't seem to be able to develop the players.
It eliminates our best athletes, there's almost zero presence from inner cities and urban areas on our national soccer team. And it's because it costs, in order to get the best coaching and in order to play on the best club teams and all that stuff, it costs like thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting the individual training that some of these guys get. And those players who come from those backgrounds aren't always our best athletes. And when you eliminate an entire societal group from a sport, could you imagine like basketball not? And this is the thing. I know AAU, a lot of people dump on AAU, but at the very least, though, like it at least still pulls from those inner cities, and it does still get the most out of those kind of tougher situations that some of these kids come from.
Yeah.
Soccer just ignores it altogether. Baseball just ignores it altogether. And I think that's something that, we as a society, if we actually want those sports to take the strides forward that we're looking for. Look in baseball, like how many of the best baseball players in America are the best are actually American. We mentioned Shohei. Francisco Lindor is the other MVP contender who was on the Mets in that NLCS. Like, the
Juan Soto.
Yeah. Also, like you look at the World Baseball Classic every year, and the Americans aren't like overwhelming favorites. They're one of the favorites. They're certainly contenders, but given like it's America's pastime, you would think that it would be this bigger deal, or or we would be better at it in aggregate, and we aren't, because I think those, like, everybody dumps on AAU, but at least AAU is generating professional athletes at the highest levels. These pay-for-play situations with soccer and baseball are just miles beyond or behind where they need to be.
And with that, actually, we've got a comment here in the live stream from Philip. Great that you're doing podcasts again, Leigh. Greetings from Vienna and keep hooping. Now, Philip, I have to say, big shout out to him, because he turned up to my first ever run in Ljubljana in Slovenia. He drove down from Vienna to be there and to hoop. And mad respect there for Philip, who came down. And I've got to get to Austria and play. He's told me I've seen some great courts out there, so it will happen one day. But thank you very much, Philip. And thanks to everybody who did tune in today and watch. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And we'll see you back here next Thursday. But before that, we'll see you Sunday night around 8 p.m. Eastern to talk a little NBA hoops.